Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 definitely wasn't on my radar for 2024, but man am I glad that I bought into the hype for this game right as it launched, because this thing is a treat to play. From the brutal executions and the visceral gunplay, Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 is probably one of the best games I've played this year, by far. It honestly feels like old school gaming. Back in those early 2010s, maybe even mid 2000s, where you were playing that third-person action game where it was just brutal as hell and you were fighting hordes and hordes of enemies. This is one of the best games to come out this year, easily. Even if you're not a 40k fan and you're perhaps quite new to the Warhammer 40k universe like I am, this game is still a lot of fun, because what you might not know about the lore and the story of Warhammer 40k, it makes up for in the gameplay. It is addicting, it is fun, the missions are lengthy, and it honestly is a lot of fun to play with your friends. It's got 3-player co-op, it's got 6v6 PvP. This is easily going to be one of the games that is Game of the Year contender. Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a Space Marine 2 video. This game, like I said, was not on my radar for this year, but I'm glad I picked it up. I've been playing it on the PS5, and yesterday and today has been my first experiences with the game. I was playing through quite a few of the story missions yesterday with a friend, as well as a couple of the operations, and today I've tried some of the PvP and continued more of the story. And I can safely say that this game is going to be a game that I'm going to play for a while, because it makes you feel like a badass. It makes you feel like you have power. The brutal executions are a perfect example of that. Ripping Tyranids in half with your bare hands, crushing their heads, using your chainsaw to rip their bodies in half. It is amazing, and it is fun, and it's also just an absolutely stunning game. The graphics for this are insane, the scenery is gobsmackingly good, and then you just get into the absolute carnage that is the combat, and it's just everything that you would want in an action game like this, where you want to feel powerful, you want that power fantasy, you want to feel like you could tear down entire armies, and this game gets that feeling down perfectly. Like I said, I'm not entirely into the 40k universe. I've played a couple of the games. I unfortunately didn't play the first Space Marine, but I might have to. I did watch a recap video on the story just before I picked up Space Marine 2, so I am caught up on the story, but I am quite new to the 40k universe, if I'm honest. It's always been something that I've been vaguely interested in getting into, but didn't know where to start. And let me tell you, Space Marine 2 just got me into the 40k universe, to the point where I'm looking at getting miniatures, I'm looking at the books. I've just picked up one of the audiobooks. I picked up the first book for a Gaunt's Ghosts series. So I am about to dive right into the 40k universe, and it's very much because of this game. And I think that's going to be the case for a lot of people that might be new to the 40k universe. Space Marine 2 is going to be their introduction, and what an introduction it is, because it honestly sets up the world, it sets up the lore, it sets up who the Space Marines are, what chaos is, who the Tyranids are, perfectly for you to get very much into this with ease. And even if you don't care for the IP, the gameplay speaks for itself. It is truly one of the best action games I have played ever. The story missions are quite fun. They are quite lengthy, but there's not many of them. I think there's only like 6 or 7, but playtime for each mission can take anywhere from like an hour to 2 hours long. And the campaign is actually a perfect introduction into how the game works, introducing you to who the Space Marines are and the Warhammer 40k universe. It actually does a great job of introducing you to all the weapon types in the game as well, because you can pick up different weapon types as you go through a level. There will be these crates that you can find that will have different weapons on it, so you can try them if you're not digging what you're currently using, or you just want to try a new weapon out. It's very good for that. And you do have to do the campaign missions to unlock the operations. As you progress through the campaign, you unlock operation missions that go alongside what the main story is going through. Basically, another squad is on a different part of the planet to you in the story, and that's what the operations are. You play through the B-side story, I guess. And let me tell you, the operations significantly harder than the main story missions, which is obviously the point, and I'm glad that's the case, because the first time we played an operations mission, we actually failed. We eventually got it on our second run, but it was a slog, but in a good way. having hordes of Tyranids come at you, having to carve your way through, defending your brothers. We even made a new friend, Brother Tacticus, because the game, if you don't have friends to play with, or you just are playing 2 players instead of 3, which is the max in this game is 3 players for the co-op, the game will give you bots to fight alongside that take one of the classes in the game for the multiplayer. And in the missions we did, we had a tactical class bot with us the entire time who we nicknamed Brother Tacticus, which I thought was quite fitting, and honestly I'd lay down my life for Brother Tacticus. But the game has a 3rd game mode. It's called Eternal War, and it's the PvP mode of this game. Now, I'm not entirely into this one, I will say. I played a few matches, it was fun, but I still think that this game shines in its horde modes, fighting waves of enemies, going through the story, doing operations. That's where the game shines. I'm sure a lot of people enjoy the PvP. I did to a certain degree, but it's not going to be the main thing that I'm playing in this game. But it's nice to have that option. I will say though, it sort of makes you quote unquote do the Eternal War game mode, because to unlock certain weapon skins and stuff, you have to do a certain amount of PvP missions. But if weapon skins aren't your thing and neither is PvP, then you've got nothing to worry about. You can just play the story, play the operations, and have a ton of fun fighting waves of enemies. Now I'm gonna get into a minor spoiler here, so I'll have the timestamp for when I stop speaking about this minor spoiler, so if you don't want this, skip to that part of the video. Spoiler in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so the game actually has 2 factions for you to fight currently. You have the Tyranids, which are the main one that you'll be introduced to begin with, which are like hive mind bug aliens that just absolutely swarm you. And then the second faction is Chaos Space Marines. Now I'm aware that in the first game the 2 enemy factions were the Orcs and then also Chaos again. So honestly, if this game was to introduce a 3rd faction, I wouldn't be surprised if it was Orcs, and I'd be well up for that. I'm sure there's other factions that they can add. I'm aware of the Necrons and the Eldars, but honestly, if the game was to add a 3rd faction, it would probably be Orcs. But fighting Tyranids and Chaos in the game right now is a lot of fun. I'm quite happy with this, especially being so fresh to the 40k universe. It's cool to see not only 2 different factions, but to see Chaos in action in the 40k universe, because my only real introduction to Chaos is in the Total War Warhammer games, and that's Age of Sigmar, not 40k. If I was to pick a preference right now though, as to who I'd like to fight more, it's probably leaning more towards the Tyranids because of the actual gore element and how brutal the combat is with the Tyranids. But lore-wise, it's pretty cool to fight the Chaos, so I'm sure the Chaos will grow on me as I read up more on 40k lore and the significance of Chaos. Okay, now that we're past that very minor spoiler, I just want to cover one more thing before I tell you whether you should actually pick this game up, and it's the customization. It's ridiculous, especially if you're into Space Marine lore and the different chapters and stuff. The customization in this game must be a dream come true, and honestly, for someone that gets heavily into customization in games, I lost myself in this. I kept looking at all the different chapters. I was looking at what looked the coolest, picked what looked the coolest, then read up on the lore, determined whether that was the chapter for me, and yeah, it's really, really good. Even if you don't want to pick a chapter to make your Space Marine look like, you can go balls to the wall with the customization, from the different colors, the patterns, the different symbols and sigils that you can have on your armor, the different helmets, the different sort of tertiary items that you can have on your armor, from chains to scripture. It's really in-depth, and I'm actually quite impressed with the level of customization, because I wasn't expecting that in a game like this. And if anyone's curious what I ended up with, if you haven't been able to tell already from the footage, I picked Black Templars. Because one, I liked the look, the color scheme, and then I read the lore and I was like, that's hilarious. I want to be a religious fanatic when it comes to the Emperor and fighting aliens. But that doesn't mean I'm gonna not pick up different items of customization, different chapters. Honestly, this game is phenomenal. Do I think you should play this game? Absolutely. If you're a fan of action games, specifically third-person ones, if you're a fan of Helldivers, 40k, Gears of War, anything like that, this game is beautifully made for you. I'm sure 40k fans that have been well versed in that universe for a long time are eating this game up, because I truly think this is one of the best 40k games that is out there. Like I said, I've played a couple of them, and this by far piqued my interest the most, and I'm having the most fun with currently playing it. So let me know in the comments down below if you've played Space Marine 2 yet, or if you're waiting to see what the game's like. I will say there is a roadmap currently out, so if content is your issue and the amount of it, if you don't think there's enough currently, there is more coming, and I can safely say that currently in the game there is plenty of content to get on with. So let me know in the comments down below what you think of the game. Like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe for more Space Marine 2 content, because I'm definitely going to be putting more videos out of this game. Become a member today if you want to support me in another way. You'll get early access to videos and live streams, and thank you so much for watching this, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!